We're trying a ever so slightly different angle for the second video, so you're not all like looking up my nose like you were in the first one. We're professionals here and we're working it out as we go. Welcome to Queerly Autistic. My name is Erin. I am queer and autistic, and I like to talk about stuff in an autistically queer way. I was actually working on another video that required a little bit more research, but I saw this come up on Twitter a couple of days ago and just sort of bashed out a script for it because it was too important not to talk about, and it had the potential to cause real harm to people, particularly young, disabled and LGBTQIA+ people. So I made the decision I need to talk about this now. More than anything, this is the video equivalent of an open letter to Katie Price, asking her to take a pause and just think about the greater impact of what she's calling for. That her reasoning is noble and she is fighting to protect her son from the awfulness of online trolls, but she can't do it in a way that endangers other kids whose parents don't have their best interests at heart. To give a quick overview, or as quick an overview as I am physically and personally able to give, I actually learnt the term hyperverbal recently in relation to autism and ADHD, and it was one of those, oh, my life makes so much sense now moments, which is why when I say I'm going to try and give a quick overview, I really am trying. Katie Price is a British celebrity who started out as a model and then made a name for herself on various reality TV shows. That's not to put shame on that career path. I think if you're doing well, you're doing well. But that gives you some idea about the intensity of the trolling and online abuse that she gets, because other people do like to shame it, and other people are nasty. Now, Katie's oldest son, Harvey, is blind, autistic, and has Prader-Willi syndrome. A lot of the trolling and abuse that gets directed towards her is also targeting Harvey with the most awful ableist statements and threats that you could imagine. As a result of the disgusting things that get said about Harvey, she has understandably become something of a spokesperson against cyberbullying and cyber harassment, particularly against people who could be classed as more vulnerable. And she has a point, because the abuse of disabled people on the internet can be incredibly distressing. I'm a white, generally able-bodied autistic person, and the abuse that I get is awful, so I can't even begin to imagine the kind of abuse that Harvey gets directed towards him. However, Katie Price has recently started a petition calling for what she calls Harvey's Law, which, due to her reach, has gained over 100,000 signatures in a couple of days. Getting 100,000 signatures means that it will be considered for debate in Parliament, and that's where the concerns stem from in terms of the impact it will have on other people if the law were to go in that direction. Let me just give you a lowdown of what the petition is asking for from the petition site. It's called Make Verified ID a Requirement for Opening a Social Media Account. Make it a legal requirement when opening a new social media account to provide a verified form of ID. When the account belongs to a person under the age of 18, verify the account with the ID of a parent or guardian to prevent anonymised harmful activity, providing traceability if an offence occurs. The whole idea is that people will be more traceable online, and therefore people sending hateful content can be more easily traced by the authorities. As well as being called Harvey's Law, it's being called Track or Trace the Troll as well. And that's where things start to get dangerous. While Katie is clearly coming from the perspective of a mother protecting her son, what she's calling for fails to recognise that not every child has a parent or guardian that has their best interests at heart. Often for people, particularly young LGBTQIA+ or disabled people, being able to open an online social media account anonymously without their parents necessarily being informed is a lifeline to finding community and information about their identity that can be absolutely life-changing and life-saving. When I was writing my book, which is a guide for young autistic people who think or know they are LGBTQIA+, one of the hardest and most important things I had to do was put together resources and advice for people who want to explore their gender or sexuality, but don't have a safe place within the home to do it. I had to direct people to services that can help them run away from home or protect them if coming out is dangerous for them, and give them guidance on how to use the internet anonymously and safely in order to get the information that they need in a way that won't put them in danger from unaccepting and unsupportive family members. This isn't just the theoretical, this is very, very real, and I have seen through writing the book just how real it is. For me to have a supportive family, which I do, and for Harvey to have a mum like Katie, who has his best interests at heart, should never be mistaken for the universal experience of being disabled and queer. It's a fact that not many people outside the disabled community are willing to admit, but parents and guardians often pose one of the most dangerous threats to the lives of disabled people. There's a reason why the disabled community has an annual day of mourning for people who are victims of filicide or who have been killed by their parents or guardians. I know far too many people in my autistic and queer circles who have been abused by the people who were supposed to be looking after them. The idea of these kids having their access to social media accounts, which is access to community and support and advice that they need to get out of these situations, including things like crowdfunding to get out of those situations safely, the thought of that access being placed in the hands of the parents that are the threat to them is absolutely terrifying. The fact that anonymity is used to do harm doesn't stop the fact that it's also a crucial tool for people's safety. From disabled and LGBTQIA+ kids to victims of abuse and human trafficking to asylum seekers using social media to stay in touch with family, friends or support organisations. Even activists who are endangered by the states that they're trying to reform and whistleblowers who are calling out abusive behaviour, anonymity is something that keeps them safe from abuse and even from violence and death. That's not even covering the fact that many of the most marginalised amongst us do not have access to a form of ID that could be used. I feel like we have this discussion every year when people insist on talking about election fraud as if this is a prevalent crime, which it isn't. But making ID mandatory in order to vote will directly gatekeep poor people, people of colour, disabled people, etc. from being able to vote. Just look at what happened to the Windrush generation and how thousands of black people have been unable to access healthcare or jobs or have lost their jobs because their citizenship, which they thought was solid, was ripped out from under them. These are the communities that would be impacted by these sorts of laws that require ID for anything from voting all the way through to accessing the internet. And what about trans people whose official ID doesn't match who they are? I know too many trans people who have been harmed by Facebook's real name policy, being forced to either dead name or misgender themselves in order to keep hold of the accounts that are often the lifeline to their community. The process of changing your IDs as part of your transitioning journey takes a long time and it takes money. There's a reason the chapter on transitioning in my book is about twice as long as every other chapter. As trans people, as with other queer and disabled people, are more likely to live in poverty, it can be a real challenge to get those documents changed or even get hold of them in the first place. The ripple effect of these laws on numerous communities and people just doesn't bear thinking about. What we are looking at with these laws is a movement to a type of internet where the people who need it most are gatekept from it in the name of keeping people safe and protecting them. Well, I think the people that this will impact need protecting too. The problem with the legislation that is being proposed is that it has this blanket idea that anonymity on the internet is bad and the only way to deal with the problems is to get rid of it. But in reality, the conversation is much more complicated than that. Yes, the internet can be a hellscape, but it can also be a life-saving space for marginalised people. I don't have any easy answers on how we solve this, but I think a damn good first step would be actually putting pressure on Twitter and Facebook to actually do their jobs properly and monitor hate and combat hate speech on their platforms, which they're not doing. The problem we have right now is that these platforms don't care and they don't have incentive to care, and forcing ID laws won't solve this. We should be focusing our energies on holding these corporations to account, not advocating for a scorched earth type policy that runs down marginalised people in its wake. Katie, I know you are doing this with the best of intentions, that you love your son and you want to protect him, but this isn't the way to do it. Too many vulnerable people and communities would be harmed by this, and it's not fair on them to do it. They do not deserve to be sacrificed to get this protection. Your idea is built on the fact that everybody has access to ID, that every person has those privileges, and that every person, every queer kid, every disabled kid has a parent or guardian who has their best interests at heart. Your intentions are good-hearted, but the specifics of what you're asking for come from a place of privilege and idealism around parenthood that the disabled and queer communities know full well is not the reality. Even parents who think they have their kids' best interest at heart can actually be harming them due to their societal biases and assumptions. All our disabled kids, queer kids, trans kids, they all deserve to be protected, and we need to find a way to do this together without throwing anyone under the bus in the process. This is a conversation that needs to include our voices, and I really hope, Katie, that you'll be willing and ready to listen, because at heart I think we want the same thing. Thank you so much for watching and for your absolutely amazing response to me launching this channel. I'm just overwhelmed and blown away by your support, and I didn't think it would take off as it has. Having any sort of platform is not something that I take lightly or take for granted. It's a responsibility. I know that, and I hope I can make just a little bit of good in the world by having this platform. If you like my ramblings, please do subscribe to the channel, or you can check me out on Twitter at queerlyautistic or on my website queerlyautistic.com. You can also pre-order my book, Queerly Autistic, The Ultimate Guide for LGBTQIA+ Teens on the Spectrum, which is out next month. Links will be provided in the description below. Remember, be proudly autistic, be proudly queer, and be proudly you. Mwah.